Hello and welcome to another episode of Coffeefusion. This week we're going to look at OCD version 2.0. Hey guys, so those of you who have been watching Coffeefusion for a while, you'll know that I've been using the OCD for quite a while, about 8 months or so, and I have a previous video on OCD version 1.0, but the guys from Honor have sent me the new version 2.0 to try out, so today's video is going to be on the differences between the two. So first of all, a quick summary of what the OCD is meant to do. Basically what you want to do with your coffee in your portafilter, before you go to tamp it, you want to make sure that it's nice and evenly distributed so that when you tamp it, you create a nice even puck for the water to flow through. And so what the OCD is a replacement for any other distribution styles. If you check out the first OCD video, if you haven't seen that, it'll give you a bit of a tip of OCD versus some other distribution techniques. And before we go into the differences between the two versions, I just want to talk to you about a couple of things I've learned from using the OCD over the past 6 months or so. The main one is to make sure that your OCD is set up correctly for the basket size and the dose that you use when you're extracting espresso. And so both OCD 1 and 2 are adjustable. So 1, you've got to remove this part here and then take out the little spaces that are inside. And by changing the combination of spaces, you can adjust the height that way. Whereas version 2 has a new design where you just twist the top here to loosen it off, and then you can spin the bottom of the OCD and get it to any kind of level that you want, and then spin the top again to lock it back into position. So basically, to set the OCD up, what you want to do is have it so that when you sit the OCD down, it's not actually pushing the coffee down, it's not tamping the coffee. You want the OCD to be just distributing the coffee when you spin it around. One of the big mistakes I had with the OCD for the first few months that I was using it was that I was using an 18 gram VST and then dosing either 19 grams or 20 grams into that. And so that meant that that dose was sitting fairly high in the basket. And so even if I had the OCD on the lowest setting, it was still kind of compacting the coffee when I'd spin it around. And so it's not really distributing the coffee the way it's supposed to. Whereas now that I've changed to a 20 gram VST and I'm dosing the same amount, when I have it on this setting here, it is spinning around and distributing the coffee without tamping it down. So that's just a good tip for you if you either have an OCD or if you're about to get one, to make sure that you have it set up correctly for the dose and the basket that you're using. The other thing to understand with the OCD is to make sure that when you're grinding, the first part of the coffee that falls into the basket falls nice and evenly as well, because the OCD can't reach the whole basket, and so you need to make sure that the density of the lower part of the basket is even if you want to get that perfect extraction. Okay, so now we're on to the differences between the two. Now, first of all, the design of the actual OCD itself, the shape, hasn't changed. So the way it actually goes about moving the coffee is the same, but version 2.0 is now made out of brass, which means that there is less of a static issue with the OCD 2.0. Basically what this means with OCD 1, when you spin it, there's a tendency for it to collect a little bit of coffee. It does still collect a little bit with OCD 2, at least in my experience, but a lot less than what we see with OCD 1. Basically with OCD 1, I found that the amount it collected was never really enough to have a major influence on your coffee dose. So for example, if you dose 20 grams, when you spin the OCD, it was always less than 0.1 of a gram difference. So it wouldn't really make a difference in terms of your dose. But over the course of using OCD several times, it would build up, and then that's obviously going to create a mess or perhaps affect your espresso. To me personally, it wasn't a deal breaker. I still use OCD whenever I'm working at a cafe or at home. but I just had to be aware that I had to clean it every so often. And of course now with OCD 2, it's probably going to be a similar story, but I'll have to clean it less often. And now on to something which I already touched on before, and that is the adjustability. For me, this is where the OCD 2 really shines. If you use the same coffee all the time, and perhaps you don't experiment with your dose much at all, you'll be fine with OCD 1 because you can just set the spacer to the size that you need it, and then you won't really need to play around. Whereas if you play around with a lot of different coffees, or perhaps you work at a few different cafes, or you adjust your dose all the time to kind of change your recipes, for me the OCD 2 is a lot easier to use, and it's certainly what I would carry around with me from now on. I work at a lot of different cafes, and some of them use more than one coffee. So for me, if I had OCD 1 and I went to the cafe and they had a new coffee on, and I didn't bring my spacers, I was kind of stuck, and I wouldn't really be able to use OCD the way I was meant to. Whereas with this, I can just take this as it is, and if they've got a new coffee on, or if they're dosing differently, I can just make an adjustment and away I go. The last difference between the two is the feel. So this has got a new feel to it, which makes it a little bit easier to grip. But obviously also with OCD 2, it's made entirely of brass, which makes it heavier than OCD 1. So those are things that you might need to weigh up, pardon the pun, and help you kind of make your decision which way you'd like to go. Personally, if I didn't own either and I was choosing to buy one or the other, with what I do in the coffee industry, I would personally go for version 2, but I am really thankful to the guys at Honor for sending me this one to play around with, to kind of learn the differences between the two, and to kind of show you guys the differences, so it might help you decide which one it is you want to grab. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you found it helpful. Let me know, did you buy the OCD? Have you bought version 2? Do you have another distribution method that you really like using? Send those comments below, and if I can answer a question for you, I certainly will. So if you enjoyed this video and you learned something from it, make sure you click that like button, because that really helps me. And if this is your first Coffeefusion video, make sure you click subscribe, because I've got a lot more stuff like this coming your way. Remember, you can check out coffeefusion.com.au for free online lessons. I also have the roastery, so I'm roasting some really nice coffee. You can check that out as well. But I'll see you next week for another video. Keep frothing!